Herkese merhaba arkadaşlar. Bugün de Stanley Parable oynayacağız. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe versiyonu çıkmadan önce biraz oynayalım dedim. Bir bakalım. Ultra Deluxe versiyonu çıktıktan sonra tekrardan oynarız. Yeni bölümlerini de oynarız. Hemen başlayalım. Altyazıları çevirmeme gerek yok zaten.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
427.
Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month.
Ölü derece yine. Evet, mükemmel bir alt çeviri.
Others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Evet, Stanley mutluydu.
And then one day something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Şimdi bu oyunun olayı şu. Anlatıcıyı dinlerseniz oyunu bitirirsiniz. Şıkır şıkır. Ama tabii ben anlatıcıyı bir dinlememek istiyorum. Birazcık diğer bitişleri de görelim. Stanley ne ararsa arasın arkadaşlarını hiçbir yerde bulamıyordu. Şu kapının muhabbeti vardı, onu ben aldım başarımını gerçi. Şimdi bakalım, harbiden kimse yok.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office.
Her şeyi kurcalayarak etrafa baktı ama bir şey değişmedi. Hikayede bir ilerlemeye de faydası olmadı.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors,
soldaki kapıdan girdi. Yok abi.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first.
Hangisi açılıyordu ya? Ben böyle şeye gidiyorum. Freni patlamış, damperli kamyon gibi gidiyorum ama bir saçlıyordu galiba. Umarım açılıyordur.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room.
Evet, şuraya oturup 2 dakika dinlenmek lazım.
Drinking it all in.
Zıplamada olmayınca oyunda.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Stanley solundaki kapıya yöneldi. Burada beklesem acaba ne diyecek, bir şey diyecek mi, çok merak ettim şu an. Bekliyorum. Ya da
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Herkesin sözüyle öyle şey yapmam arkadaş.
Look Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot.
Bayağı sohbet ediyor ha. Birbirimize haksızlık etmek düşman derim.
I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time.
Şimdi aşağıya gidebiliriz, yukarıdan gidebiliriz.
Someone you've forgotten about. Please.
Yukarıdan gidelim
stop trying to
ya.
make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not
Yukarıdan
asking for
gidelim.
me. I'm asking for her.
Birader, ben seni dinlemeyeceğim.
Your chance to redeem yourself, to put
Ama
your
hayatına
work
tekrar girmesine
aside,
izin ver.
to let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Bismillah.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her.
Uy,
If you
bir
can
tık
truly
tırsın lan
place
burada.
your faith in another,
Lan korku oyun değil mi bu
then
ya?
pick up the phone.
Açtık. Oy, ne parladı ekran be. Gözümü aldı.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting.
427
I'm just
okey.
pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now I want you to come
Benim
in and
odası,
tell me all
benim
about
odam
your
burası.
Gotcha.
Kandırdım.
Oh, come on. Did you actually
Kandırdım.
think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you?
Sandın lan.
I'm trying to make
Oğlum
a
nasıl
point
bir
here,
konuşma?
Stanley.
Vallahi
I'm trying to
çarpıdım
get you to
ağzına.
see something.
Çok sinirim
Come
bozdu.
inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. This is a very sad story about the death
Elimde
of a
anlatan
man
çok
named
üzüldüm.
Stanley.
Ney?
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and
Bira
every button that he
bastık
pushes
bastık. Tamam.
is a reminder of the inconsequential
Tamam.
nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing
Hmm,
buttons,
o-
doing
aa, o
exactly
da
what he's
oluyor.
told to do.
Dur
Now
bakalım
he's
yavaş yavaş
pushing
o
a
da oluyor.
button. Now he's eating
O da
lunch.
eski haline
Now
getirebileceğiz
he's
mi
going
acaba?
home.
Değil mi?
Now he's coming back to
İşe geri
work.
gidiyor.
One might
Evine
even
gidiyor.
feel
İşe
sorry
geri
for
gidiyor.
him,
Yemek
except that
yiyor.
he's
Bilmem ne
chosen
yapıyor.
his
Ivır
life.
yapıyor. Zıvır yapıyor. Ne yapalım? Başka ne yapmamı bekliyorsun?
But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the
Bir
unknown.
şey değişmedi lan. O
Fantastic
tuşa basınca, sıfıra
discoveries of
basınca.
new lands. It was
Ne,
wonderful.
bir şey değişmesi
And each
lazım.
day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
Abicim ben maaşım yetiyorsa şeyime
And
bakmam.
so he began to fantasize about his own job.
Vallahi diyorum işime
First, he
bakmam ben.
imagined that
Sabahtan
one
akşama
day
kadar
while
tuş
at
basarım
work,
hiç sorun
he
değil.
stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something
Ha,
was
bayağı
almost
oyunu
too
anlatıyor şu an
wonderful to
aslında.
behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible
Hedeflerle
paths
doldurmaya
and
çalıştı.
destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down
Bebekte.
another was a game
Ha
with a
oğlum
baby.
bayağı
And he
oyunu
called
anlatıyor
it the
harbiden lan.
Stanley Parable.
Ben burayı ilk defa görüyorum bu arada.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't
Evet.
there be? Perhaps if he played
Belki
just
bir
one
daha
more time.
oynasa. Evet oynarız.
But there is no answer.
Aa
How could
bilgisayar
there
geldi.
possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The
Hatun
longer he
gitti.
spends here, the more invested he gets. The
Hatun gitti
more he
ulan.
forgets which life is the real one.
Mondays.
And I'm trying to tell him this.
Bir şey
That in
Mondays.
this world he can never be anything but an observer.
Pazartesilerden nefret
That as
ederim.
long
Böyle
as
bir
he
şey
remains
herhalde.
here, he's slowly killing himself.
Monday miydi lan
But
pazartesi?
he won't
Vay
listen to
İngilizce
me.
A0.
He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that
İpnelik.
he'll understand
Bana
that
ne
every
arkadaş,
second
ben
he
basarım.
remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see?
Bu arada
How
harbiden
can I
bizim
make
odaya
him look at
geri döndük.
himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this
Evet
to him.
mecbursun.
I'm compelled to. I must.
Evet mecbursun.
Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. and Stanley pushed a button. And
Lan. Kötü bir şey çıkmasın Allah aşkına. Niye loadingledik? Yani niye yeniden yükle... Ne?
already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
Tamam, okey. Bu ekranı açık kalmış. Giriş bekleniyor. Input A, input A. Lan basamıyor mu da? Lan onu ben yapmak istiyorum. Neyse yüklenir şimdi. I hate Mondays. Güzel.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he
Tamam
entered
lan,
the
soldaki
door on
kapıdan
his
geliyor.
left. Yet there was not a single person here
Evet, burada
either.
kimse yoktu.
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office,
Progress.
hoping he might
Lan.
find an answer there.
Aha. Baya bir şirketiz ya.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
La la la la la la. Süpürgeyle falan oynayamıyoruz mu ya? Alamıyorum şu anlatıcının
There was
ağzına
nothing
falan
here.
vuramıyorum.
No
Burada
choice to
hiçbir
make,
şey
no
yoktu.
path to follow,
Ne
just an
yapılacak bir
empty
sizin,
broom
ne de
closet.
takip edilecek
No
bir şey.
reason to still be here.
Belki de vardı. Kurbağacıkla döveyim.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact
Anahtarla
with,
gireyim.
he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there
Stretch'lik
doing
oynuyoruz.
sweet FA.
Bence de her şeyi siktir etmek lazım.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing?
Canım öyle istiyor kardeşim.
Please offer me some explanation here.
Yemin
I'm
keyfine göre.
genuinely
Var mı bir
confused.
itirazın? Vallahi yok. Açıklama yapmayacağım. Gerçi
realize there's no
açıklamayı yaptım
choice
ben.
or anything in here,
Canım
right?
öyle istiyor.
If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no
Tamam lan, tamam,
significance
bıdı
to the
yapma,
story whatsoever. I never would have coming to a staircase. Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Yo.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss,
Ay,
admitting
burası
he had left
mide
his post
bulandırıcı yer
during
mi
work hours.
yoksa bana mı
He
öyle
might be
geldi?
fired for that. And in
Aha.
such a competitive economy, why had he taken that
Evet.
risk? All because he
Loop'a
believed
girdik şu an.
everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy.
Baya loop'a
And then
girdik şu an.
something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any
Deli gibi
logical
loop'a girdi şu
sense.
an. Ve
And as Stanley
yani
pondered this, he began to make other strange
garip
observations.
gözlemlerde
For
bulundu.
example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
Harbiden
Why
lan.
did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply
Evet, kendilerini
repeating?
tekrar ediyorlar ve şu an
No,
başım
Stanley
dönmeye
said to
başladı.
himself, this is all too strange.
Sizin
This
de
can't be
başınızı
real.
döndürüyorum, evet.
And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on
Ve
the
sonunda
tip of
vardır
his
sonuç
tongue. He just hadn't found the
kelimeleri
words for it.
seçemedi.
I'm dreaming, he yelled.
Evet,
This is all a
bunların hepsi rüya.
dream. Oh, what a
I'm
relief
dreaming.
Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He
Deli
wasn't
falan
going to lose
değildi.
his
Evet,
job.
deli değilim.
He wasn't crazy after all.
Ya
He
da
thought to
deli miyim
himself,
bilmiyorum.
I suppose I'll wake up soon.
Yine
I'll
kendi
have to
kendime
go
düşünüyorum.
back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Oy,
Then
kapıdan
he imagined
geçemeyeceğiz.
himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest
Yalnız
question of them all entered Stanley's head.
onun kadar
One
şey
he was
oluyor da
amazed
aslında
he
biz
hadn't asked
rüyada
himself
değiliz,
sooner.
değil mi?
Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking?
Oyun bir
Now
tak
the voice
gerilim
was describing
oyunda gibi
itself being
kaçmış.
considered
Yani
by
oyun
Stanley, who found
konuşamadım.
it particularly
Anladınız siz.
strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he
Ay
thought.
başım döndü ya.
And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the
Açamıyoruz
truth
mu
was
kapıyı?
that of course
Ya
this was not a
zorlayamıyoruz mu?
dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now hearing the voice speak these words was quite a
Sen
shock to
için büyük bir
Stanley.
şoktu.
After all, he knew
Araba
for certain beyond a doubt that this
binip
was in
gidemiyoruz
fact
mu
a
ya?
dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool
Tamam.
weight of the blanket on his skin, the
Gözümüzü
press of the
açacağız, aynı
mattress on his
yerdeyiz.
back,
İyi
the fresh
izleyin.
air of a world outside this one. Let
Bırak
me
da
wake up,
uyanayım
he
birader.
thought to himself.
Sal beni
I'm
birader.
through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my
Benim
job.
istediğim hayatımın olduğu
All
gibi
I
devam
want is
etmesi.
my life exactly the way it's always been.
Aç gözü.
My life is normal. I am normal.
Aç ulan gözü.
Everything will be fine. I am okay.
I am okay. Yo. Don't.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just
Bayağı
someone tell me I am
gerilim müziği
real.
vardı şu
I
an.
must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who
Ne
am
oluyor lan?
I? Who am
Allah.
I? And everything went black.
What the fuck?
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like.
Dışarıda
And in that
mıymışız
moment,
yani?
she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day.
Buluşma
The
aklıma
very
geldi ve
important
gitti.
people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there,
Ceset
staring
diyorlar,
down at the
ölmüşüz.
body. And then she turned and ran.
Biz ölmüşüz birader. Başa döndük. Arkadaşlar şimdilik bu kadar yeter. Daha sonra bölümün devamını getiririz. Kendinize çok iyi bakın. Abone olmayı ve beğenmeyi unutmayın. Esen kalın.